Welcome back to the Something in the Wilderness podcast. My name's Steve, and in each episode of the show, we select a different Andrew McMahon song to discuss. Today, I'm excited to welcome Morgan to the show. Morgan recently reached out to me with some old school Something Corporate songs on her mind, and although we've covered several songs from the band's from before the band's major label debut, there's still plenty we haven't, and the song today is one of them. So welcome to the show, Morgan.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
In regards to Andrew McMahon, I've been a fan since probably 2005. So going to his shows has kind of been just like part of who I am as a person at this point in time. Other than that, I'm just like a mom every other day, like normal. But Andrew McMahon is like at the core of who I am as a person at this point.
Cool. I'm curious, are your kids into Andrew McMahon music, or do they like the same music you do, or do they do their own thing?
So they're still young enough that I like sway them, but actually, so my first was born like 4 days after I saw Andrew McMahon at Bogart's, and we had the first Wilderness record, and he signed it, him and Zach Clark, and then we saw Andrew for the first time with him in December, and we brought the record again, and we got it signed for him again, so it was pretty cool.
Oh, that is awesome. Good for you. So you got into you got into Andrew's music in 2005. So you missed the original Something Corporate years. And
right.
So did you come in on Everything in Transit then? Is that right?
That's what got me started.
Oh yeah, like a lot of people. Fantastic. That's cool. Well, let's talk about this song. So this is a unique one to me, and I'll tell you why. For me, the era of Andrew McMahon music we're talking about today is what I call the MP3 era for one primary reason. I just feel like that's the only place that a lot of these songs lived for so long before YouTube. And so that's how you got these rare songs, right?
Yeah.
The ones that weren't on an album. That's where they existed. So I've mentioned my MP3 collection on the show a while, and I've got to share with you and everyone else a beef I have with iTunes, Apple Music, whatever you want to call it nowadays. So many, many years ago, I noticed that it was iTunes. They kind of clear out your MP3 sometimes, or like delete. I don't know if you've ever had this happen. They delete MP3s that, I don't know, they deem illegitimate or something. So I've noticed like my MP3s will just disappear because they're in an iTunes folder. That's how I used to listen to all my MP3s, right? And that happened years ago, and people were like, I don't believe you. That doesn't happen. And I was like, no, really, I had these like rare songs that don't exist anywhere else, and they're just gone now. Like they were deleted out of the folders, and I all had them in that one spot. Well, update on that. Just yesterday, I was looking for the Galaxy Sessions and Ready Break MP3s that I have, and they're all gone. So yeah, I don't have. So I don't have Ready Break backed up. I did have the Galaxy Sessions backed up on a different file folder, but yeah, out of the iTunes folder, they're all gone. It's like I don't know how iTunes, Apple Music still has control over my hard drive. Like, it's so weird, but they're gone. Yeah, the only ones there are the ones like I legitimately bought from iTunes now.
Okay.
Which isn't a whole lot, but like I can tell exactly which albums I bought. But anyway, it's really upsetting to me. So now I've got to try to recover some of that stuff that you can't find. So. And
that's how I found the song, like the LimeWire days, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's how I stumbled upon this song originally.
Right. Yeah. So today we're talking about I Don't Want a Job from that era. And to be honest, I didn't have that MP3. I didn't know until like 5 or 6 years ago that my early Something Corporate collection was incomplete. And then I found things like Caldecott Tunnel and I Don't Want a Job and in Airports. I didn't have any of those songs. So those were new to me like 5 years ago. Cool. So including this song that we're talking about today. So I Don't Want a Job was track 2 on the Galaxy Sessions, which was an unreleased collection of demos from 2001, some of which the band would go on to re-record for Leaving Through the Window, and several of which they'd leave behind. And I Don't Want a Job was one of those that I would consider left behind.
Yep.
It was never featured on another release, and I don't know that it's ever been played live again. Maybe you know something I don't about that.
No.
Let's start with this, though. When did you first come across this particular song?
So I'd say like the LimeWire days. So once I found Everything in Transit and I realized Something Corporate was there, I just like ran for it. Like, okay, I love this. I love this sound. And I just like I said, LimeWired it all. So
it was pretty clear to you right away that this guy who did Everything in Transit also had this other band, and he had these, not only these couple of albums, but also these online only demos and things like that. Like, was it a friend that told you about it? How did you know that?
So I stumbled across the mixtape on MySpace, right?
Uh-huh.
And that's
All
where I found
right.
it. That's the first song I ever heard. And I loved it. So I went and bought the album. My mom had to buy it. I was like 12 or 13, but
Uh-huh.
I like liked it. And then obviously like LimeWire, so I started looking it up and it's like a spiral. So like, oh, look at this. And then, oh, look at this.
Uh-huh.
And it just kept going, right?
Yeah, so you just keep going down the rabbit hole and you find more and more. And yeah, I remember that. I had a lot less to dig through because that happened to me in 2002. And then I was going back to things like the Galaxy sessions and Ready Break, except back then, either I wasn't as good of a researcher, I didn't care enough, or it just wasn't out there. I don't know which, but I didn't know where all these songs fit back then. So
Yeah.
it's like there was these MP3s that I was like, okay, they're not on Leaving Through the Window, but they're like old stuff. So, but again,
Right.
for some reason I never came across I Don't Want a Job at that time. All right, so I have a few production notes about this. Not much though, to be honest. I think the Galaxy sessions were recorded at the Galaxy Theater. That's what I've kind of read and heard, hence the name. I don't think this place had a studio, so I think it was recorded live from the stage. But these songs do have a decent studio quality to them. So I looked on a few different places online. You know, I try to dig all around and see what I can find about these songs. And this one, there's not much out there on. But on songmeanings.com, you can look at what other people are saying about these songs. And some comments I read did heavily imply that this is a live version recording of the song. So that kind of fits with the whole idea that it was recorded at the Galaxy Theater and it was recorded live, just like my understanding of Constantine on Ready Break. Another thing is, I was going to say who played on this track, and I'm pretty sure I have a good idea. Again, there's no liner notes out there for
Right.
Galaxy Sessions, so I'm kind of guessing here, but putting the pieces together. We can ascertain that Andrew McMahon was on vocals and piano, and Kevin Clutch Page on bass, and Brian Ireland on drums, Josh Partington on lead guitar. And I was going to say before this morning that I didn't know which guitarist, whether it was Ruben Hernandez, who left the band around that time, or William Tell. But I'm pretty certain now it was William Tell on this track. And I'll tell you why I think that. And I don't know, do you think it was William Tell on this track as far as we know?
Yeah, I definitely think so.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay. And the reason is I don't have much live history on the song at all, but I do know they played the song at Blaine's 21st birthday party. Did you have a chance to watch that video link I sent you?
I did. It was so fun.
Yeah.
It's like a very young vibe. It's very nice.
Yeah, it definitely reminded me of my own high school days because we used to hang out in coffee shops and watch our friends' bands play live and drink Italian sodas, and because I didn't drink coffee back then, and so it definitely had that vibe. And there's just a bunch of friends hanging out and playing in a band, and if you watch the whole thing, people are just making requests. They're asking Blaine what she wants to hear because it's her birthday. I don't know if you heard the Letters to Noel episode, but back in October, I talked to a guest about Letters to Noel. And this Blaine's 21st birthday party came up. And I had some of my facts mistaken, by the way, at the time, but I've got more of an idea of what happened now. What's cool about that is after I made that episode, shortly after that, I went to Las Vegas and I almost met Blaine. I did not meet Blaine, but she still hangs out with people affiliated with the band. She's still friends with the band, is my understanding. And she still goes to all of the shows in her area. Hardcore fan. I met her friend and we talked, and then I ended up connecting with Blaine online afterwards. So we're now Instagram friends, Facebook friends, and we're keeping in touch. So, but most importantly of all this, she put the whole video that we're talking about online now, back in February. So, yeah, she's like, it's the 23rd anniversary of that show. In 2001, and so I'm going to post it. It was the end of February, and I'm so glad she did because I loved watching through that whole thing. And the version of all the songs actually it's a pretty good recording for an old videotape.
I know. I agree. I'm like 23 years old at like good recording quality. It's awesome.
Yeah, so I was pretty impressed and pleased with being able to watch that, and I think a lot of people were because there was a lot of comments.
Hmm.
But I went through and listened to all the songs. It's a lot of the old stuff, of course, because it's 2001. But I just loved going back to that. Again, it kind of made me feel like I was there. Kind of gave me like this nostalgic sense for like what I was doing at that age.
Yeah.
Do you know anything then about them playing this song live? Because this is the only record I have of them playing this song live.
I have no idea, but I'm gonna guess never, probably.
Yeah, like it's just one of those songs that was lost to time because we
Right.
can assume that if they re-recorded songs from that era for Leaving Through the Window, maybe they considered this one not good enough or someone told them that it wasn't like it didn't fit or something. I don't
Right.
know.
So I think this is more audio boxer versus leaving through the window, like that type of vibe.
Oh, true. Yeah. Yeah, and in fact, if we think about the timeline, when that video was recorded in February 2001, Ready Break came out about 6 months earlier, if I have my facts straight, and Audio Boxer wouldn't come out for another 7 months. And in that video, it's not during I Don't Want a Job, but it's during a different song or in between songs. They say that we're in the middle of recording some songs, so we're going to have a new song soon. And I don't know if they're referring to the Galaxy sessions
Okay.
or if they're referring to Audio Boxer that came out later that year. But going back to what I said about William Tell, that's why I think William Tell was part of those recordings because he was in that
Right.
video.
Mhm.
It's also funny that if you watch the whole video through, they say, hey, we have a new member of the band, and his name is Clutch. They make a joke about how they changed his name, basically. But I do wonder if the new member of the band was William Tell at the time, but they just kind of were making a joke about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know Ruben went off to college that year, and that's why he had to leave the band. So it sounds like you've had a chance to see Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness live. Did you see something corporate when they reunited back in 2010?
I did. I got to do twice. I did Bamboozle in Chicago and then the Fillmore in Detroit. And I'm actually going to see them at the Fillmore again in September.
Oh,
That's
awesome!
very
I
nice.
will be there as well.
Oh, well, cool.
Yeah, because that's where I grew up. I grew up outside of Detroit, and so that's not far from my old neighborhood. I'll see them in Cleveland as well the previous night. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be a good show because
Oh,
I've seen so many shows at the Fillmore. It used to be called the State Theater. I missed the 2010 reunion completely.
oh no.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
Yeah, I was in a weird space. Like I look back at those dates and I'm like, "Oh, I could have went." We were in the middle of moving between Maryland and Ohio, so
Oh, yeah.
it was like a crazy year and then we had a child that year after, so it was like a crazy time. I got married in 2009, so
Oh,
yeah, just a lot going on. I guess I wasn't paying attention to like Andrew McMahon tour dates at the time, but I should have been, but that's okay. I got to see something corporate this past fall. I'll get to see them later this year. So I'm
mhm.
pretty pumped. Would you want them to play this song, I Don't Want a Job? Like, is that something that you would be like, I hope they play that one?
So honestly, I don't think that I would want it in a live show like that. But
Hmm.
during COVID, when Andrew would do like the live streams and he did like that kind of B-side one, I think that would be more of the vibe for it.
Okay. Because he didn't play it. I don't think he played it during any of those live streams.
Oh no.
Okay. Yeah, because I checked my notes and I didn't see it, and I was like, oh, was I wrong? But I don't think so.
I don't think so either. That B-side one was awesome.
Yeah, yeah, B-side Bonanza. Some of them weren't so deep cuts,
I agree.
but yeah, but this one would have been appropriate.
Right.
I don't know. I'd be curious to hear something like this live, but yeah, it's not one that again I don't have the history of 20 years with like a lot
Right.
of people do,
Yep.
and like I do with their other deep cut older songs.
Yeah.
So it's not like one of my top choices that I'd say I hope they play that one. But I don't know if you saw, but they pulled out Babies of the 80s back in December
Oh wow.
at the New Year's show in LA. So I guess anything's possible. Like I never thought they'd play that song live again.
Right. That's pretty cool. I didn't look at the set list. That had to be fun.
Well, I'm sorry. I hope I didn't spoil anything for you because
You're good.
because they I'm hoping they varied up. I'm sure like 90% of it will stay the same. So I won't tell you anything else they played. But I'm thinking maybe they'd vary up that deep cut or something.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait a long time. We'll have to wait till September to find out, I guess.
I'm
So
going to Four Chords in June, actually. I'm a brat, so I'm going to Four Chords
I'll
too.
be there too. I'll actually
Oh,
be at that one too.
that's funny.
Yeah, yeah. That's the main reason I'm going. I'm also a big All American Rejects and Reliant K fan, so it just kind of I saw all three of the bands and I was like, that's no brainer.
Right.
And I also went to Four Chord the last 2 years, and I loved the experience so much, both times that I was like, I guess I'm just going to go every year now. And it just lined up that something corporate was on the
Yeah.
lineup. So, but
There you go.
I'm going Sunday only though, so I'm just going to
Me
that one.
too.
Cool. Well, maybe I'll see you at some of the shows. It sounds
Right.
like
It's
very
funny.
cool. But yeah, I don't know if they've ever played this song. I don't want a job at other times besides Blaine's birthday party. They probably played it before that, I would assume. But once they started releasing the officially recorded songs on Audio Boxer and then Leaving Through the Window, they probably focused in on those songs that they were trying to promote. That's usually what an artist would do in their touring. I don't know. I guess we'll see if they end up playing this song or some other deep cut on the live show that later this year. Kind of going with the production notes, just like songwriting, I don't really have much on this song. It's
Right.
I don't know about you, but so I watch like short interviews with Andrew, and I listened to all those live streams that you mentioned. I've never read or heard him talk about this song. Have you?
Never, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever referred. If he has referred to it, I don't remember. It's not to say he doesn't like it, but I mean, it's kind of like a teenage song written by a teenager. Like he has talked about the idea that like he's written these songs in the past and then he's moved on from them, and here's where he is in life. And some of them he feels are good to revisit, and some of them he feels like he's moved past. It would make me wonder if this is one of those that he feels like he's moved past. I don't know. Officially, I've never seen anywhere that this song is written by Andrew McMahon. I assume it is, right? I mean,
Right.
it's either Andrew or Josh if it's a Something Corporate song. I have no proof to say it's not a Josh song, but I don't know. Something tells me it's an Andrew song.
That's exactly how I feel. Like I was looking over and I was like, the lyrics, they're not entirely what Andrew's lyrics are like right now, but like the playfulness of it just gives me Andrew vibes because it has like a little bit of playfulness to it. I agree. I think.
That's a really good way of putting it. I agree. I think the wordplay in the song kind of speaks to Andrew's lyric writing at that time. Absolutely. I also noticed that so when I started reading the lyrics for the song to kind of look it over before I knew we were recording it, I saw the opening lyrics, which we'll get to lyrics, but just departures are so hard. You pack up your things. I thought it was airports for a second. I was like, oh, this is the wrong song. And then I kept reading and I was like, oh no, this is I Don't Want a Job. But I don't know why it made me think of airports again, which was off of the same collection.
Right. So my brain does that sometimes too. Because like for the longest time, I would only really remember this song. Like maybe it was like 6 or 7 years ago, like a Facebook memory came up and I like the lyric that's my favorite. It's like, what is that? So I like had to like Google for a while and I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot this song existed.
Yeah. Yeah. I've definitely done that with old Something Corporate songs like Ben Franklin's Kite, If I Die, Mulligan Goes to War. Those three songs, for the longest time, I forgot they existed. So between what I call the MP3 era and then like when I started listening to music on YouTube about a decade ago, but that time in between, there was a good period of time where I just forgot about those songs completely. So, and then it was at that point, probably or shortly after, that songs like I Don't Want a Job came to the into the spotlight, and I was like, oh, this exists too, in addition to all the other stuff. So let's talk about the sound of the song. I've mentioned that it may have been recorded live at the Galaxy Theater. That's by all accounts what I found. But it's definitely the sound that reminds me of Something Corporate. What do you think?
I definitely do. So it's like this song is nostalgia for me, and it's like early Something Corporate vibes where it's like high school, young adulthood, just like I said, playful, and it's very fun.
Yeah, it is very fun. I like the guitar riff. I gotta say, sometimes when this guitar riff is playing in my mind, the one during the verses, that constant like one that goes through the verses, and this is gonna be maybe an off the wall reference, but I don't know how into like early '90s alternative music you are, but I mean it was a pretty popular song. But Two Princes by Spin Doctors, like when I think of that guitar riff, sometimes the opening lines to Two Princes by Spin Doctors comes into my brain, which I'm sure they weren't referencing at all. But again, my brain tries to compartmentalize this music and be like, what does this fit with? Oh, it's like this other one.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with that song?
Nope.
It was super popular like 30 some years ago. So it's a pretty old one. Like around the same time Gin Blossoms was popular. It was like Spin Doctors was another one of those that was like really big on the radio for like 2 or 3 years, and then they just kind of went away.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I hate when they just go away like that sometimes, though.
Yeah, they continued to tour, but like they never really had hits again like they did in like 30 some years ago. So that's the riff that I think of, that riff from that song. But this is definitely, the song we're talking about is definitely a rock song through and through. More of that guitar side of Something Corporate. And so that's one of the reasons well, probably the only reason I even questioned it maybe not being an Andrew song. I'm, again, almost positive it is. But like the fact that it's more kind of guitar based than piano based. But something else, speaking of instruments, something else I noticed in this song, and I don't know if you picked up on this, is I try to listen to these songs when I'm doing this podcast with like a really like close ear now, whereas, as just a fan, I didn't do that really before.
Right.
But one thing I don't usually notice in these songs, something corporate or most of Andrew's songs, I don't notice the bass guitar as much. But in this song, I do. Like if you listen to the YouTube version, and that's the link I'll share in the show notes for everybody, I feel like the bass is turned up really loud, which I didn't notice until I put on headphones. And I was like, yeah, it's loud and clear, whereas most something corporate songs, you can feel it, you can hear it, just kind of as a background, like bass is usually used in a rock song. But I feel like it's kind of at the forefront in this song. And would you call this a pop punk song?
That's a good question. So it's like the pop punk era.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say it's pop punk, but more like kind of. I think pop punk is like the only way to describe it because it's not like just like regular punk, and it's not entirely like indie.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with you. A lot of their contemporaries at that time, it kind of fit this song. Not all their songs do at that time, but I think this song kind of fits in with that, like Saves the Day, Newfound Glory, The Starting Line, just kind of like all the things they were probably listening to and the bands they were touring with at the time. Yeah. As we've talked about on the show before, there's some more pop punk leaning songs on Leaving Through the Window, and then there's ones that, if you listen to them individually, you'd never consider pop punk.
Right.
But I think I Don't Want a Job fits in more with the pop punk side of something corporate. Speaking of Leaving Through the Window, do you think this song could have fit on that album in any way?
Honestly, I truly don't think so. Like, the way that it's like in the album order, I don't see where it could have snuck in or anything it could have replaced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't have wanted it to replace anything.
Right.
And the album is kind of long. I mean, it's 14 tracks. I'm usually a fan of longer albums, not always, but yeah, I don't know if it really fits somehow either. It's kind of, but I think it's maybe the history, the bias of the history that we have with it. It's hard to imagine them putting another song like this on it. So I just thought, I don't know, maybe someone else would have a different perspective. Like, yeah, this should have been on there or something. But it's a good song.
Oh, yeah.
I can't hear it alongside those other ones.
Right.
If you know what I mean.
Entirely agree.
But I don't know, with a different recording, like an updated version of a recording and different production by Jim Wirt, who did the whole Leaving Through the Window album with them, maybe it could have been different. I don't know. Let's talk about some lyrics then. I want to point out that there are, and it didn't occur to me until I was listening over and over to this song again, but it didn't occur to me until that point that there are 4 early Something Corporate songs that mention December or Christmas. Did you know that?
Yeah, I actually do.
Yeah. Isn't that weird? Like,
yeah, I never would have thought about that either. But now you think about it. Forget December.
And Airports mentions Christmas. Yep. And then Walking By, he mentions December. So all those songs that were either in Galaxy Sessions or Audio Boxer, and then there's Forget December, of course, kind of separately, but that's interesting to me. It's almost like they wrote a bunch of songs in December of that year, or or was it inspired by something that happened in December? They're like, oh, we're going to use all those songs. I don't know. I wonder if there's others. Those are just the ones I came up with, like kind of looking around, but there may be others as well. But let's talk about the way this song starts again, because I mentioned this earlier. So in the lyrics, it sounds like if you knew there was a song by Something Corporate called Airports and you started reading these lyrics, and again, I'm not that familiar with either of these songs. They're kind of new to me in the last 5 years. Departures are so hard. You claim packing up your things, your necklaces and rings, your Darvadan and morphine. Kind of sounds like it could be Airports, but we know it's not.
Right.
But did you know what Darvadan was? Because I didn't know what that was.
So I think Darvadan, it's like a benzo, right? Benzodiazepine. Like it made me think of Ativan is what it made me think of.
Oh, okay. Is it for like depression, anxiety, or?
Let me double check.
Okay, yeah, because might as well find out because I don't actually know. I don't know. Was he like mispronouncing something then?
Maybe he was trying to say Ativan. That's just kind of what I kind of took it as.
Okay. Yeah, that might make sense.
Maybe he was trying to say Darvocet versus Darvadan.
Or a blend of the two. Like,
right.
Like he was blending the two words or something. Interesting. I've never looked up that word until now, but I did wonder what it meant. But for some reason, I thought it was, yeah, like you said, a benzo.
Seems kind of like it would be like a codeine cough medicine is kind of how it's making me think.
Yeah.
But it's no longer made. Whatever it was.
Okay. Okay. Maybe it was something 20 years ago.
Right.
Are there any lyrics in this song that kind of jump out to you that that when you hear the song you're like, oh, I love those lyrics? Or
Yeah, so there's a couple spots that really have always stuck with me. So there's one part. So you still do drugs, I still play games.
hmm
Like high school me, right? So that's always stuck out.
At one point he says we're still getting stoned. It's a shame the games we play. But in the part you're referring to, he says, you still do drugs. I still play games. Like, we all know that Andrew has a past with drugs himself.
Right.
And so, like, it's funny that he's, like, calling someone else out. Like, you still do drugs. I still play games. Do you think he's talking about actual games, or is he talking about, like, mind games?
Mind games.
Okay,
for sure.
that's what I thought.
It's like the love song type era. So like Letters to Noel and Walking By time frame. I feel like it's not like a love song, but definitely relationship associated.
That was going to be one of my questions for you. So do you think this is to a significant other or, like, a love interest?
So it makes me think like I don't think it's like specifically for a love interest. It feels like it was more kind of like an ex or like one of those like they call them situationships these days, right?
Yeah.
But more like a fun here and there type of thing. It wasn't like an actual relationship. Like I said, the playfulness of it doesn't strike me as like a serious breakup or something like that.
I don't really have much of an idea what this song is about. If
Mm-hmm.
you go through all the lyrics, there's a lot of words here. I do know that there's a lot of lyrics. It's not like a story. It's just kind of like things,
Right.
playful words, playful lines. That actually, the lines that you mentioned, you still do drugs, I still play games. It does make me wonder if it was about a relationship or about a friend. It's actually kind of hard to tell in some of
Right.
these lines. Like, I know the main premise of the song we get in the chorus. I don't want a job. I don't want to go to school. I don't want to be part of, like, the 9 to 5, like,
Yeah.
general society. Kind of most of us felt that way at that time in our lives, high school and a little bit beyond. Like, you're like, yeah, I'm different. This isn't for me. Like, this typical
Yeah.
life, this typical work life. But in Andrew's case, I mean, he had a good point because he was in a band and he went on to be pretty successful. So,
Yep.
and still is. Those two pieces jump out at me: that you still do drugs, I still play games. You prefer not knowing, I call you names. And then that other part I mentioned, that's kind of a similar reference, but we're still getting stoned. It's a shame the games we play because I like it that way. So in the following verse. So there's 3 full verses here and 3 choruses, and then I think an outro, a 4th chorus, actually, if I'm not mistaken,
Yep.
which is it's a lot for a typical song.
Right.
I think it's a 4.5-minute song.
Yeah, it's pretty long for sure.
I didn't look to see, but I think that's
The
on the
runtime.
longer end of a something corporate song.
Except for Constantine, of course, but
Well, if you consider Constantine, I guess their average song becomes like 4.5 or 5
right?
minutes.
Yeah, that's
It
true.
brings up the
Outlier.
average. Yeah, yeah, the outlier in the statistic. I enjoy that the pre-chorus. So that's
Yep.
kind of my favorite lyrical part of the song. These yellow lights are turning red, turning red. You starve your heart, you starve your head, and when it's over, you go back to bed. I can't even begin to guess what he's talking about here,
Right.
but I like the way he sings it, and it sounds
Yeah.
good.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, the word I like how you put it earlier. The wordplay is it's playful, and he kind of puts words together that just sound good.
Yep.
What he meant by them, no, I have no idea. Are there any other lyrics that kind of jump out at you?
Yeah, so he said, we're still getting stoned. So that whole verse has always been. So wake up to the thought of you. It's December. Like the end of it, it's like I'd like to have you alone in my favorite cologne with the air on your hair, and we're still getting stoned. That's always stuck out with me.
It's a shame the games we play because I like it that way, and then it leads
Yeah.
back to the pre-chorus. That is yeah. Now I'm looking at that is a fun verse there, and that's where we get our December and Christmas references that I mentioned earlier. A lot of this song, actually the majority of this song, reminds me of reading through a teenager's notebook. And that's
Exactly.
it's not a dig at Andrew at all. It's just, it is what it is. He was
Right.
20, 21, whatever, when maybe even younger when he wrote this song, I don't know. When you were in high school, did you do that? Like, I know I did. Did you just like write random things in your
Oh yeah.
notebooks to pass the
I
time?
still I still do that.
You
But
still do
yes.
that? Cool.
Uh-huh.
Okay. That's good to know. I worry. So I mentioned I have kids. I have daughters, and I worry sometimes because like all of us, it's not just kids that do it. We all look at our phones a lot. You know, we all have these devices that we're looking at, and I worry if it stifles some of that creativity or that, that. So I'm glad to hear that you still do that,
Yep.
because I don't know if a lot of people still like just doodle and
Hmm.
still like write on things, because we used to do that to pass the time. And
Yep.
now we have these devices that we're always looking at to pass the time. So like,
Yep.
when does that like doodling and writing random words and phrases down come in? Like, we used to draw like band logos,
Hmm.
either the band logo or just make one up,
Yeah.
on our folders and on our
Oh
notebooks.
yeah.
But we'd also write like little rhymes and
Hmm.
lines. And I am not a poet nor a songwriter, never was. But like, I probably wrote things down in a notebook during high school that someone else would look at and be like, "What is that? What does that even mean?"
Right.
And that's what I think of when I read these
Hmm.
lyrics.
Yeah, and that's what makes it fun because I can definitely see where you're coming from. Like just doodling and putting it all together and
Hmm.
like making a fun song. Like, hey, let's just do this and add this. And like you said, like the riffs and all that stuff, it kind of just comes together to be like this fun, nostalgic song. Like that's going to be played at like a birthday party or something.
Yeah, and again, the sentiment of the song, in general, it's that whole like like late teenage attitude. Like, I don't fit in. This isn't for me. I'm doing my own thing. I'm
Hmm.
not going to be part of 9 to 5 jobs. I don't want to go to school. It's a bit rebellious and just kind of anti culture, anti society. So
Yep.
not much else would be expected from a kid in a band at that age. So
Right.
yeah, but the verses are pretty good. So I like all the verses just because they're very playful. Do you have like a favorite part of the song specifically?
Yeah, so like those lyrics we discussed, like the last one, especially like the one like with the air on your hair, still getting stoned, like that. I like the way that it feels like it slows down and you can almost like picture yourself in a garage.
Hmm. Does that take you back to your
Yeah,
younger years, like hanging out with
for
friends
sure.
and whatnot?
We definitely. So we smoked a lot of pot when I was young, when I was in high school, and
Uh huh.
we made like a gravity bong. It was in my parents' garage. So when they were asleep, we would have fun with the gravity bong in the garage. So it
Yeah,
just kind of puts me back into that high school time frame.
I think you can relate to Andrew and the guys a lot in this song then, because I think that's exactly where they were at when they were
Right?
writing this stuff and doing band practice and things like that. So that was kind of the thing back at the time. It was very much just hanging out in garages or in
Mhm.
basements, and yeah, completely agree. Yeah, I like the pre-chorus that I mentioned. I already read that part, but I also like that guitar riff. Like I said,
Yeah.
even though it reminds me of a song that it probably most people wouldn't go to. Spin
Mhm.
Doctors is kind of an odd reference. I actually
Yeah.
really do like that riff and the way it fits into this song. I think they did a good job with making that fit with the piano. I definitely think, like all Something Corporate songs, you would notice if the piano was missing from this song, but it's more of a rock song in my opinion.
Yep, I agree with that.
So when you reached out to me and you said, "Hey, how about I don't want a job?" Like, what was it about this song that sticks out to you? Like, was there something that occurred to you at that time when you were listening to it that you were like, "Oh, this is the one I'd want to talk about"?
So this is the one that's always stuck with me the most. So of course I like Letters to Noel, Ben Franklin's Kite, but a lot of the older stuff feels more sad. So like there's Babies of the 80s and stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
more like mellow and low key, not like sad, but
Mm-hmm.
not as playful as this. And I think the playfulness is what has stuck out and like the nostalgic like memories. It's like it's one of like one song that I can like remember having on a mix CD in my car in the nice sunshine.
I'm kind of envious a little bit that you had this song back then to listen to, because
Right?
I think this song would have resonated even more with me
Hmm.
20 years ago than it
Right.
does today. I like the song, I like the lyrics, I think it's fun, but I think it would have been like a good addition to a playlist back
Yep.
then, especially driving around with friends and in the basement, in the garage, and things like that,
Right.
like listening to this stuff. It was interesting when you reached out and you were like, that song, because I was like, I had to think about it. I was like, do I know that? Yeah, I know that song, but
Hmm.
it's not one that I've lived with for a long time.
Right.
So I had to go back to my MP3 collection and YouTube. I know you can get everything on YouTube, but
Right.
hopefully I can find the rest of those MP3s. Again, I'm a little jaded that I lost a lot of them, it seems. So, but I'll have to find these again. I don't have the history with it, but I do enjoy the song.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on the song?
I think we did pretty good covering it.
Yeah, I think so too. There's again, not a lot of from the songwriting and background notes perspective, because there's just not a lot about it. I would love to hear Andrew talk about this song.
Yeah.
But again, I think that he's kind of moved past this point in his life. Let me rephrase that. He's at a very different point in his life now. Okay, right. And although he can look back and say that was fun, that was awesome, like we can right here and right now, but he probably has trouble identifying with the specific words because of whomever he was talking about and wherever he was when he wrote this song. Again, the notes of a teenager sometimes we get a Letters to Noel, like you said, a very serious, like, ballad type of song, but then sometimes we get like a really playful, obviously just maybe some scribbles in a notebook or some words he put together that sounded fun. But I do enjoy that we have some of these kind of traces of the history of Andrew's initial songwriting from back in like 2000, 2001. And I got to, again, shout out Blaine for posting that video. I really enjoyed watching that. It was such a capture of a moment in time that I never thought I'd be able to see inside of, of that from that perspective. So, well, Morgan, thanks for joining the show. I really appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was fun to go back to one of the originals and just kind of dig in, because last time we did VHS, and it's such a different conversation when you're talking about like brand new era Andrew McMahon versus like, let's talk about who Andrew was as a teenager. So
definitely two opposite sides of the time period.
Yeah, I mean, just like us, Andrew's grown up, so it's like it's different now. So we're adults, we're parents, we're working. That's just such a different mindset we all have now. So it's fun to go back in time sometimes. Mm-hmm. Well, thank everybody for listening as well, and be sure to subscribe and rate the podcast so more people can find it, and post a comment on the socials. I always love to read those and respond. So I love the feedback. And if you'd like to DM me, Instagram's the way to go, or I'm on Facebook. You can also email somethinginthewilderness@gmail.com. There's something in a Western winter where it's easier to say goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.